Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked Fly Fly Fishing, and today we're going to tie a tube fly, a very simple one called the Stoat tail. It's a very simple fly, very similar to the silver stoat that I just did, just a variation, and just to be different, I'm going to tie this one on a brass tube instead of a plastic tube. So if you want to get this one deeper, it's a primarily a dark fly, so you know it's something you might want to fish a little deeper, so let's go with brass. I'm using my Viva 6/0 thread as usual. My body is going to be black uni yarn, and I'm going to use the medium oval silver for the rib and black bucktail for the wing. So let's get started. First thing you notice when you're tying on metal tubes is they're much less fussy to tie on than a plastic tube with a mandrel, which wants to keep on moving. This is simple. So we tie on our yarn. Now work that all the way back. Keep everything on top. Then come forward. Okay, when you start to wind on the black yarn, something I could have done here is I could have made sure my black thread had better coverage if I wanted to be very meticulous, and then I don't have to worry so much about the black yarn. But when I'm putting on the yarn now, because my black thread is not evenly covering the tube, I'm going to have to make sure that I really stack up the turns of black yarn so it doesn't show any brass through. Not that it really matters for the fish, but you know, we want to try and be somewhat neat. You notice I'm feeding my yarn out of a bobbin holder or bobbin. It makes the life easier when you're putting on a lot of yarn like I'm doing here. It's easy to run out of material when you're trying to eyeball it and figure out how long a piece of yarn you need, and you end up running out. Put a few wraps on it just to secure everything. Now for our rib. So I'll just clean up the head. Be careful you don't skip off the brass. One of the things about using metal tubes is the ends of the tubes can be a little rough. I mean, you can make the effort to try to sand them off, but you'll find if you skip off, there's a plastic liner in that tube, and if you skip off the brass into that crack between the tube and the brass, you can actually cut your thread. Okay, let's go on to the black bucktail, and it's going to be a sparse wing. This stoat tail is not bushy. As I said in other videos, you can stack these if you want. I prefer to leave them a little bit on the ragged side. I'll just take off some of these long hairs. There we go. I'll bring it back to the knurling, cut that off. Pinch loop it. Now, just make sure it's on top and hasn't moved. flatten it a little bit. Okay, wind it down well. See, that's what I was just talking about. You get too close to that, the end of that brass, and it will cut your thread. Nothing like screwing up just as you made the warning. I'll just fold that tag back and trap it. There we go. Bring your thread to the back and flip it upside down. As I mentioned in the silver stoat, you don't want your belly wing to be denser than the top wing. Sparser or the same. Again, pull out all those long ones. Put it down to about the knurling. Again, just make sure it's level, it hasn't moved around too much. And now bind it down and try not to cut your thread. Now there's something I did there. I wound very gently as I got right to the end. It fell into that crack, and because I wasn't pulling on it, I didn't cut the thread. So you can cheat a little bit and get away with it if you're careful. Okay, I'll just bring it to the back, put a couple of loose wraps on the back end just to hold that bucktail down, don't let it flare out. And now we'll whip finish. And for our UV glue, and some top coat. There we go. Our stoat tail, very similar to the silver stoat, just basically a difference in the body. This wing's a tad sparser. Other than that, it's basically the same fly. And this time, as I said, being an all black fly, I went with a brass tube, fish it near the bottom, whereas the other one being silver, fish it near the top. That's kind of some of the things I like to keep in mind is what is the fly going to look like at various levels of the water column. So it made sense to do a bright bodied fly that's designed to be higher up in the water column and a dark bodied fly down low. So give that some thought. Cheers.